right, here we go.
Let's get to it.
Yes, so we want to try something new, a new webinar format where we're going to talk about use cases and actually like AI and automation in applied. And the first area which we want to tackle is marketing, and there we want to talk about the automation of competitive insights with the help of AI and automation. So yeah, welcome everybody. In case you're listening to us, just a quick intro in case you don't know us. So I'm here with my managing partner, Joanna, and we're both running Frontiera, which is an AI and automation company. Maybe so that you can a bit better understand where we are coming from and what our background is basically we have a background in strategy and innovation, and therefore build up quite extensive experience when it comes like to process analysis, to system thinking, to solution architecture, and to change leadership. And those are also the four areas that we see over and over again are super useful when working together with clients on AI and automation projects. And talking about clients already, so here you see some of the logos for the companies for which we have worked in the past. And throughout the project, what we see over and over again, that we actually manage to reduce about 80% of the manual work once we start identifying certain workflows and optimizing them. Usually we can also dramatically lower the operating expenses, most of the times by 50%. On the projects we work with our clients, we see that most of them actually already see a return on investment after 8 weeks. So it's actually really fast. And since we're going to automate a lot of stuff, we managed to reduce something like 99% of the workflow errors that usually happen when human beings are involved in the process or when processes are not standardized. So quickly for the agenda for today, we just have like a quick half an hour where we wanted to try that. And we are looking into marketing and competitive tracking. And we will talk a bit about what are the approaches that you can take with AI and automation. How can you uncover challenges in competitive tracking? And then we'll show you some real world examples to inspire you and actually show you what's possible to do with the combination of AI and automation. Joe, may I hand it over to you?
Yes, you may. So one of the things that we find quite interesting, it's like even in the last couple of years since the launch of things like ChatGPT, a lot of the focus has been on improving individual performance. People are using chatbots and other types of AI apps for various tasks. But I think like most companies and most people have not yet realized how many things you can plug in together to create a system that can perform rather complex tasks rather than just using one application to get one input for one individual. So kind of reframing the conversation, and we kind of see two approaches generally being taken on both by individuals but also by companies. There's kind of like people busy finding the right technology. You know, is it going to be DeepSeek? Is it going to be ChatGPT? Is it going to be Sora? And trying to find use cases there. But we really believe that you get more out of everything that's available right now, out of all the capabilities that are available now and new ones being launched every single day, that it's a lot more interesting to get busy to find the problem to solve with AI and automation. So identifying the use case where it can actually be scaled and benefit the entire organization or the entire team rather than individuals playing around with interesting technology. Because frankly, all the capabilities and all the technologies can be integrated into workflows so that you can do a lot of things together. And that's the benefit, much higher benefit to everybody. Intelligent automation is kind of what we call it. So it's really, we believe that it's not so smart to throw money at AI, let's say just AI tools, but really to throw money and brains at the problem that can be solved with technology. Generally, that's the way that we view technological application and integration into business processes. We did want to start talking about very specific use cases rather than general approaches and frameworks, because it's, I think, like by going through a specific use case, it's a much clearer way to demonstrate everything that I was just talking about, which is looking at individual applications of technology and uniting them together to perform actually workflows that are being done by people in various business units right now. We do have kind of like a process that we go through to identify the right problem to be solved and some terminology that we might be using. One is, we start by looking at what are the jobs to be done. And for us, a job to be done is a key activity with specific goals done by teams. So today we're talking about competitive tracking. So for instance, the job there is to be updated on competitive activity on a regular basis so that you don't get caught by surprise, right? So this is really kind of like a job to be done by marketing teams, but also innovation teams and a lot of other teams, just to keep track of what's going on out there, ideally in real time, not quarterly. From there, we kind of look at the task journeys, and it's like, okay, so when you're kind of tracking the competition, let's say, what are the processes that you go through, or what are the processes that you delegate to your partners? Do they need to look at social media? Then somebody looks at the website, somebody looks at press releases. Then you kind of analyze all that data, put it somewhere in an Excel sheet, then maybe create a report out of it. So we kind of look to see how that journey or that task is being performed now. And then from there, we can identify the best use cases for AI and automation, and then build the intelligent workflow that will actually take that job to be done and automate it, make it systematic and enhanced with AI. Say all business activities are critical. Not all of them are so excited or so exciting in the process part of it. So I'd say competitive monitoring is something that needs to be done. But what gets everybody excited is the output, the analysis, and the insights that you get so that you can adapt your strategy. You have quick response times. You understand what's happening in your industry. But the process of it is not the most interesting, not the most fun thing in the world. So it's critical, but painful, but it's necessary. I won't go through all of the details. You really need to be up to date on pricing, on new innovations, on new campaigns coming out, everything. But it takes a long time. So it's actually a very, very relevant use case for AI and automation, where the output is critical, the process is not so exciting. And some of the challenges are actually that a lot of it is still done manually. So it's time consuming. So not only it's time consuming for a lot of reasons. One of them being that there's so many channels, there's so much content being uploaded, there's so much change happening in the marketplace. So really, while you're not even looking, there's so much happening in terms of your competitive activity. So there's a lot happening. There can be human error, and you can actually miss things. Like somebody forgot, I don't know, we didn't quite double check to see the new influencer that our competition was using, or a new price plan that they launched, because we don't have time to look at all of their websites and look at everything in detail. It can be a little bit subjective. People kind of like are subjective about what they think is important or not. That is standardized, or it should be standardized. And really like limited data and sources. So it's like limited data just means that a human being can only make so much time to look at everything that's available. If you think about everything that's posted on TikTok or Instagram every day, every hour, every minute, it's overwhelming. So to have a bot do that for you is quite interesting. It tends to be a semi-structured process. So we follow some things, maybe not other things. There's not always consensus about what are the most important channels, what should we be following, which channels collecting what data. Sometimes this is one of those things because it is a painful process that it's put off for other important things like, oh, we don't have time. Oh, I'll do it later. So it gets delayed. Automation is the perfect solution for that. Data stability and robustness. is that sometimes you access limited quantitative and qualitative data because there's too much information out there. Sometimes somebody will forget to put a source, so you can't reference it, validate it, all of these things that need to be associated with information collection. And it's always not, it's also not often done with enough frequency because it is so time consuming and labor intensive. So I've seen very often things like this being done on a quarterly basis, for instance, where it actually, in this day and age, it might be a lot more important for you to have things relatively in real time to be aware about what's going on. And very often there's poor output formats. So very often you'll see just kind of a presentation with a whole bunch of numbers without deriving some interesting insights out of it. It tends to be somewhere sitting on an Excel sheet or a PowerPoint or a Keynote or whatever. And it doesn't give you a chance to splice and dice and look at the data in different ways. And there are automation platforms that actually create much better dashboards, much better interfaces so that you can always look at the data from a lot of different angles. And I'll show you some examples. So just to put it in terms of a GIF, it's basically you're kind of like you're very, very busy searching, finding, doing screenshots. Ask any colleague that is actually doing this on a regular basis, and they'll be able to tell you that it literally can make your head explode than doing screenshots. Copy and pasting them into PowerPoint presentations. It's very labor intensive. Also, doing really rigorous, interesting analyses requires a lot of time. So say if you're monitoring something on social media, you want to be able to easily categorize and analyze things like how much is your competition posting? What channels do they tend to prefer? What are their preferred formats? Is it video? Is it still? Is it just text? How frequently are they posting? What kind of engagement are they getting? Are there any trends in the hashtags? So imagine somebody doing that from 1,000 posts that they've collected, where that can actually be done a lot easier. So from this, let's do a screenshot of everything. So actually, let's see if we can automate this process in a standardized way according to rules, according to what the team actually needs to gather, analyze, and have as an output. So, so we've done some analyses and we've done some calculations based on our experience doing this for clients. And for instance, something like social media monitoring, which is social media is the media now for messaging for brands. We've been able to take actually this process from something that could effectively take 17 hours to something that could take about 85 minutes. It's always on, running 24/7. At the push of a button, you can get all of the information that you need in real time. And that means doing things like data collections with the right kind of bots and tools that can scrape all of the social media platforms is something that can be done in 10 minutes. Categorizing data in meaningful ways by brand, by platform, by the number of likes, by the number of responses, by hashtags. That can be done within just a couple of minutes, no matter how much data you have. The analysis to be able to analyze and be able to rank things like who's getting the most engagement, who seems to be getting the most ROI for what they're doing. Things like that are just about reconfiguring your data set and seeing insights immediately. Documenting the findings can be something that can be done very quickly, depending on how your stakeholders like to see the findings. And then, of course, you can actually extract with some AI bots some critical insights that give you not just information, but insights about what your competition is doing and how you might then accordingly react, be proactive, or fine-tune your social media strategy and marketing and messaging. So that's just kind of like one example of it's a use case within we need competitive information as quickly as possible so that nothing gets by us. And the ultimate goal of that is actually going from information to action much more quickly. It's compressing that time to action from I know something, I can react to it really quickly, strategically, and meaningfully because it's done when people are on holidays. It's running 24/7. You can access the information anytime you want. and kind of nothing slips through the cracks. So you're always updated, always informed, always aware, and always ready for action without a lot of delay time in between. And then I think that Steph is going to actually take us through a couple of workflows that we built that can illustrate these cases even more.
So here are the workflows, and we basically just picked 3 workflows. And the first one that we have here is actually to track competitor activities by collecting public data that is available. And if we dive a little bit into that, then what we can see is actually that there are, again, quite some challenges usually that we could overcome. So in general, it could be that there is like a data overload that you actually have when you look into public available data. But we can prioritize the data, and AI can actually help us to filter insights. Then there is the problem that usually there are scattered data sources and data is all over the place. We can now use like databases to have a centralized competitive intelligence dashboard and let all different data sources run into it. As Joe explained before, there is like a manual monitoring usually where we can now do like real-time automated alerts that are happening. A lot of times it's also inconsistent data when we look into the data sources. Now we can standardize all of the data and we can structure the analytics. And often, as we said, there could be unreliable data or subjective data that we can then also use AI to actually filter that and add additional credibility to the data. But so if we would dive into the workflows and talking about those a little bit more specifically, then obviously, I mean, you have a starting point for your automation, which can, either be something that you're going to do on a scheduled basis, or you do it on demand whenever you want to do it. Then basically you trigger it and it goes to your data sources that you have selected or predefined, and then it starts with the data collection process for publicly available data. That could easily mean that you do web scraping and you want to visit certain data sources that are publicly available on the web. You can also actually access different APIs, meaning if you want to get product data, for example, from specific marketplaces or something, you can use the APIs to get that information. And if you want general news available, for example, then you can also do that quite easily via RSS feeds that you plug into. Or another interesting angle is actually also newsletters. So a lot of companies inform their customers about newsletters, so you can also easily subscribe to a newsletter and then get that newsletter data in. No matter which of the two sources you go afterwards to a process of data processing and data cleaning, meaning we see that, for example, for each data point that we get from social media data, we actually get like 100 pieces of metadata with it. The question is if you need all of that metadata or not for your next step. So you would go through a process of cleaning. And then you actually come to the data analysis, meaning that all of your data you actually then have in a database. And then based on the data that you have in a database, you can then do further visualizations of the data, meaning you can do different graphs, you can do different charts out of the data. Basically, only your own imagination is the limit. And the other thing, as we said, you can also then trigger certain notifications and alerts that could come out directly from your database, and that actually then help you to take some actions or actually start like a certain feedback loop if you want to do so. So that would be just like an easy overview of how you can actually set up a workflow that helps you to integrate public available data for your competitive tracking. Joe, do you have anything to add to this?
No, not from my end. I think it's pretty comprehensive.
All right. If we then swing over to the next one that we've prepared, then we actually have the use case to summarize competitor product features from websites. And again, some of the challenges that you might face when you usually do that would be, again, it could be a certain information overload, depending on how many products you actually want to scrape. But again, also AI can help you dealing with that data again. Again, in a lot of cases, it can be unstructured. We can use AI to then standardize the data, structureize summaries. Usually there are frequent website updates available, but you can actually automate the whole competitive monitoring, that it always goes to the website automatically every Friday and checks the website. Some features might have a vague description, but again, you can manipulate the data and you can make it like really concise and clear in terms of summary. And it can also be that it might be difficult to compare certain products to each other. Also there you can use AI, bring them all on a side-by-side level, and then have easier comparison between the different products that you're actually going to scrape. So if we dive into this, then again, you have the starting point, which is the data collection. Obviously, you need to identify and access the competitor's website because that's like your main source where you actually want to grab the data. Again, there are just like two easy ways of how you can do it. Sometimes you can do it via web scraping, or maybe otherwise you can also access them via certain APIs that are there. Once you then have access to your list of competitors and to their website, you can then start the process of data extraction. And also there, the extraction can happen in like different ways. So you can have a text processing and summarization coming out of it. But next to text, you could also, take screenshots, the images, the videos that are available on that website. You can grab all of that. Once you then have the information and you have everything that you collected, then also processed in text form and summarized, you can then summarize the content further with the help of AI. You can also create certain highlights and USPs out of recurring patterns that you actually see. So you see if somebody is like all the time in their news promoting the same stuff, or if they are switching their communication strategy. And what you can also do with AI is, of course, that you can see what keywords are they, for example, using for their website to promoting the products. And you can then further clean and filter those. You can do an analysis on the keywords. You can use them for further output and visualization. And then afterwards, again, get into the area of notifications and sharing, meaning that you get automatically notified once something happens or once something changes. You can share this information with your colleagues again to spread it within your organization. And if necessary, you can start a feedback loop. Joe, your thoughts on this?
We've seen these workflows in action, and it's just amazing how quickly, once you kind of decide what information do I need, what's the base source of that information, what do I need to look for, so establish kind of like what data you want to collect. Then literally there are a million different, not a million, but there's quite a lot of different like capabilities and apps that you can plug in to actually extract that data for you. And the processing, you just simply, you tell the system what you need done. We're talking about platforms that are literally no code coding. So the same way that you would brief or instruct a colleague about what you would like out of the information that you're gathering, you use the same type of intuitive language and briefing to any of these APIs, any of these apps. And then you simply define what kind of format you would like as an output. And building these systems is, in my opinion, a bit of a no-brainer. Like I said, all business activities are critical activities, but not all of them get you excited with the process that you have to go through, although you can be very excited about the actual outcome and the output that you need. So using this technology, let's say, to reduce the kind of repetitive activity and tasks and get you to an output faster, it's doable, it makes sense, it's a lot easier than people think. And it's a lot more integratable into your daily activities than you would think as well.
Exactly. So thanks for that. And then let's jump to the last one that we prepared. And this is a bit of a bigger one. It would be basically a workflow of how to generate a report for competitors' social media engagement. Again, the challenges that you might face, they're similar ones. Sometimes you have limited data sources that you actually have available. And of course, you can integrate cross-platform engagement metrics so that you can actually really compare the data that you have. There could be also data overload, as we said, because when you have like a lot of competitors, a lot of social media posts, it's really hard to keep track of that. So AI can help you with filtering and prioritization. Again, sometimes there are inconsistent comparisons, also that you can use AI to standardize that, to normalize it, to benchmark it. A lot of times you also face delayed insights because you maybe just run an analysis once a month or every quarter. Once you set up an automation, it can basically run for you every hour, every day, every week. And it also might be that you consider it as a complex and time consuming to then create the reports. Also, the reports can, of course, be automated, and the visualization can be automated, and that you actually have like a nice overview of your competitive reports. So as we said, this one is going to be a bit of a bigger workflow. Once again, we start with the data collection and we take a look at the engagement metrics that we're going to collect. Once you have the engagement metrics collected, you can then automate that periodically, the data extraction, you centralize the raw data that you're going to get, you clean up the data, and then you start with the data processing of the data. Once you have the processed data, you can actually go into the area of identifying trends and patterns, where you take the data that you collected, you analyze it for trends, you see if you can identify a pattern. If there is no pattern, you can restart it again, try to look for additional patterns. And if you find patterns, you can take them out and use them to make predictions of what might be happening next, finalize your findings, and then actually go back. So then you have your trends and patterns identified. Then you can take those and you can start comparing the metrics that you're going to see, meaning that you can start with the analysis. You can try to extract insights from the data, depending if you have it or not, and you can start generating your reports. If you have the reports, what you can then do is automate the report creation, of course, as we said, and you can take the reports and then look for a format for clarity that you have it. You can schedule the distribution of it so that you have predefined lists of people that are supposed to get it. And then you can also integrate like a feedback process into the send out of the report so that you understand if actually the feedback is useful and if it makes sense for your audience. Then there, as you can see, there would be a couple of other additional branches here, which I think based on the time that we have left, we need to leave out. But this was just a short main workflow for you to see like what you can do if you want to actually automate that and generate the reports automatically out of this. Do you have anything to add, Joe?
No, I think that was quite comprehensive, and I think the important takeout is here is that all of these, any system that you build to do any task can grow and evolve over time. So let's say you want to do competitive monitoring and you want to start off with, I don't know, I want to follow what, I want to see what my competition is doing on Instagram. And then tomorrow you want to add TikTok to it, easy as pie. And you say, oh, I would also like to kind of go through their websites on a regular basis to see if there's any news, any new launches. Really easy to plug into that information gathering part. and you say, oh, I also want to track what the CEO of my competitors is posting regularly on LinkedIn. You can plug that in. So you can keep adding data sources. If you say, okay, I would like to analyze it, for certain things, you can also keep adding, kind of different parameters on an ongoing basis. So every time you want to like say, add new tasks to your workflow, you don't have to create separate workflows. They can be integrated into the basic one or the first prototype that you've developed. I think in the metaphor of that is, if you need to get more done around competitive monitoring, for instance, the metaphor would be, yeah, let's add a few more colleagues with certain specialties and capabilities, and they could all be then added into the workflow. So these are things that can evolve over time. You can do them as standalones if you want to just, focus on certain things separately, but these are things that can evolve and grow over time. In the same way that a brief that you would give to a colleague could expand over time based on what you need, what you think is important, and what you need to, add to kind of like any kind of process that you're doing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's a great point. And unfortunately, we are already out of time. But in case you enjoyed our session about the use cases for competitive tracking, then also feel free to reach out to us. We have an AI and automation intro session that takes about 2 hours where we gather where we gathered a lot of use cases for you, where we are going to explain it to your team, where we see where there are opportunities and where we will actually show you how you can actually start your own AI and automation journey and what are best practices from other companies. So in case you're interested, then feel free to reach out to us. And otherwise, Joe, thanks a lot for your input as well. And
Thank you.
then we are going to hear each other soon, looking into additional new use cases.
Looking forward, and thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.